welcome back. Thank you for joining us. Us is actually just me, but whatever. Thank you for joining me. Today we're going to be talking about collapsing our fears. So as XJWs, we have generally a lot of fears towards words specifically. For example, like the word Armageddon kind of can cause some sort of like a panic feeling in us. Even words like disfellowshipping can create this intense feeling of abandonment. So none of these feelings are very useful. So we're going to talk about how to collapse these and how to get us in a better emotional state and disconnect these fears because they're not part of our reality anymore. They worked then because we were in a cult, but here and now in our world now, we don't need those fears anymore. They're not helpful in our world. So let's start by explaining a little bit about how the brain forms these connections. And once we understand that, it becomes a little bit easier to figure out how to collapse it and get rid of it. So we start with a baby. As a baby is learning speech, they hear a sound, a word. The brain then forms a picture that matches the word. Like, for example, dog, then they attach the sound, the words. Later along comes writing, but in the beginning it's the sound. The brain attaches that to the word. Then the brain has to decide an emotion for that word. So is this good, bad? Do we hate it? Is it evil? Is it yummy? Is it what do we feel about this word? Ice cream. So the little baby hears the word, associates the word ice cream to a creamy cold treat, and then they get an emotion. They like it. It's good. So it creates this positive association to the word. In my world, in NLP, we call this an anchor. It's the emotional response to a word. So I'm going to stick with probably the word Armageddon because this covers all kinds of words, but that's probably the one that we're most familiar with. So when we think about the word Armageddon, it creates this sense of fear. And that's because our brain has taken this word, this huge long word, and it associates it with horrible images. And then we associate this bad feeling to the word Armageddon. When we get out, we no longer believe in a lot of the doctrines. We may not even really believe in Armageddon anymore, but that fear association can still stick with us. And that's not super useful. So we're going to use the word anchor. The brain anchors a word to a feeling. Okay, so most of the time, we do this with all kinds of words. Every single word in your vocabulary, you have some idea of whether, does it feel good, does it feel bad, do you like it, do you hate it, avoid it, go for it. You have an emotion attached to it. Sometimes these can be intensified, though. Repetition intensifies it, trauma intensifies it, accidents intensify it. For example, you might think of a song from the past. Maybe it reminded you of a happy memory. And so now every time that song comes on the radio, boom, there you get that happy feeling again. That's an anchor. It can happen the opposite with trauma. For example, when I was 17, I was in a car accident. I was going through an intersection and I had the green light and a guy was coming through the intersection and he slammed me, T-boned the whole entire car. Okay, so then my brain formed an anchor to stoplights, intersections specifically. For a long time after that, every time I came up to an intersection, I would feel this panic kind of feeling because of the trauma of something, of that intense experience of an accident. Now, the brain can naturally neutralize that with time, but who wants to suffer? Who wants to like not be able to drive through intersections without panicking? I mean, it's a logical thing that the brain did to protect you, but it does more harm than good, because freezing up in an intersection is not very safe driving skills. So with what we're going to learn today, we're going to figure out how to collapse that. All right, so we're going to go back to learning how it gets formed in the first place. Repetition intensifies the anchor. It intensifies the feeling that we attach to the word. So we go back to the word Armageddon. One picture of Armageddon is going to create this anchor of fear in you. One picture. How many pictures did we see of Armageddon? How many pictures in all of the publications, all of the watchtowers? How many times did we preach about it? That even the thought of paradise is on the other side of Armageddon. So even if you get to the good goal, you still have to go through horribleville in order to get to the other side of paradise. So that's not a cool feeling. And then, like I said, we intensified that. Not we were brainwashed. They intensified that feeling in us because fear controls people. Fear keeps you in check. Fear keeps you safe. So we lived in that world. We were constantly being bombarded with pictures of destruction, birds eating dead bodies and buildings collapsing and all of these horrible, horrible pictures. And every single time we saw the image, it strengthened the connection between fear and the word. Then we did something else. We preached. So how many times did you prepare some sort of presentation to go door to door? And your presentation started out something like this. Hi, good morning. Have you ever wondered what Armageddon means? And the householder's like, I don't know, like the movie with Bruce Willis? Whatever. What else did we say? Have you ever wondered what's the solution to starving children? Okay. What else did we say? We were the best at taking some natural disaster, some like major earthquake or something, and being like, hello, Mr. Householder. Did you hear about this earthquake? It's the end of the world. And how many times did you actually have a householder who was like, oh yeah, I was just thinking about that? Or, oh yeah, I think about that all the time. Okay. As we were preparing to reach these people's hearts, to bring them to salvation, we're actually reinforcing the brainwashing in ourselves. We memorize these presentations, we practice these presentations, we're convinced of it because we're seeing it in all of these illustrations, all of these talks, whatever. And as we're thinking about this constantly, we're strengthening that fear that's attached to the word. Okay, so what's the householder thinking? Hi, good morning. What do you think about the end of the world? What's the solution of all the suffering in all the entire universe? Yeah, no, they're sitting in their house planning Christmas and getting ready for a birthday party and planning their education. No JWs were the only ones that were thinking about that. Not the householders. They're emotionally healthier because they did not have that constant bombardment with end of the worldism. That's important because we thought they were all thinking about that all the time because we were, but apparently the rest of the world isn't. I have coaching clients from all different backgrounds. In fact, probably most of them are not ex-JWs. And so in all of the coaching sessions I've ever had over the last 20 years, I don't think anybody ever said, you know what I really want help with is I have this overwhelming fear of Armageddon. Because they have a tendency, without this brainwashing indoctrination, even if they've heard the word Armageddon, even if they do kind of wonder, what's the world coming to, they weren't bombarded with it like we were. They don't have the same emotional connection. So yeah, they might, maybe they might, but it wasn't as intense as what we had. Although there are religions that have similar beliefs, if a religion believes in hell, that can also create the same kind of intensity. But even at that, probably our brainwashing was probably more intense because of the visuals and because of the constant reinforcement. So worldly people have this ability to be more optimistic. I remember talking to people and using my presentation, so what do you think about, whatever disaster I'm talking about today? And they're like, well, you know what? I think humanity's going to figure it out. And what do Jehovah's Witnesses say? No, we're not. Humanity's doomed. because we're trying to induce the same fear state that we were in. Well-intentioned, but we are not there anymore. And that doesn't serve us super, super well in this new world, obviously. So in one of my other videos, we talked about beliefs and how to change a belief. We can change the belief about Armageddon, and we walked through that process, how, first of all, the brain has to enter into a state of questioning, then we go into the research phase, then we can take the doubt and the information and we can form a new belief that replaces the old belief about Armageddon. And that's a huge first step, but sometimes that emotional anchor stays. So now we're going to talk about how to collapse it, how to disconnect the fear from the word. And again, we could do this with anything that we have a negative attachment to. Like I mentioned before, like the trauma of a car accident, we can take an incident, so it could be an event, it could be a word, it could be a visual, and disconnect it from the emotion that's attached to it. And this is how we do it. So any of you who've watched my interviews, or I guess even these videos, I laugh constantly. I laugh at everything. And that's because laughter is a great tool to collapse the negative anchors that we have towards events and situations. I always tell people, you can laugh or you can cry. You're not changing the circumstances. You're just changing your own chemistry, your own feelings about what happened or what's going to happen or whatever. So we're going to cross-wire our brain with a new emotion. And I'm going to choose laughter just because I think that's an effective one. You can choose whatever you want. You can choose peace. You could choose neutral. You have to choose something to replace it, though. It can't just be, I guess nothing is the word for neutral. So we could do neutral, I guess, but neutral is still a feeling. Neutral is still an emotion. So what we're going to do, like I said, I'm going to use laughter. So you enter into a state of feeling first. So maybe you think about a funny memory, maybe you're playing comedy in the background, and you let yourself feel it. You let yourself smile. You let yourself feel however you feel happy. Funny enough, you know what? Everybody feels happy a little bit different. Some people feel it in their chest. Some people feel it in their stomach. Somebody feel it in their whole body. Everybody feels happy. They feel laughter a little bit different. So you get yourself in the state of laughter. And this is going to sound weird, look weird, but I don't care. We're going to do it anyway. So you're going to enter into this state of laughter, and you're going to just kind of pinch your ear. As you think about this laughter, you're going to pinch your ear. This helps the brain anchor that feeling. So then you let it go. shake it off, shake it off. And then you go back to laughter or peace or neutral, whatever it is you're talking about, and you can hold that same spot. Now, this is a funny trick. So you could do this 4 or 5 or 6 times, and then you'll notice that all you kind of have to do is kind of pinch that same spot, and you'll start to smile because your brain is associating the kinesthetic, the feeling, with the feeling. It's a trigger. So you create the trigger. And this is super useful because now you can take this funny feeling and put an image in your mind, and you've now changed the emotional attachment to the image. This is not a joke. This is not funny. This is, well, it's kind of funny because I'm laughing, but this is a simple technique that you could do by yourself, and it works. So you enter into your state of happy, and then you visualize Armageddon. Whoa, that feels like a crosswire, doesn't it? It is. That's because you're cross-wiring your brain. You're collapsing this old anchor. So when you combine going through the belief change, you don't believe it, maybe you still feel it. So now we're going to attach something new to it. It does confuse the brain because your brain didn't used to think that was funny. It used to trigger fear. It used to trigger paranoia. And so when you add laughter into it, you're changing the recipe. You're literally changing the emotional recipe. Now, it might take a couple of tries. It might take a couple of playing with it. You might need somebody to walk you through it. But I promise, this works. You create, see, I don't even need to touch my ear to do it because I've done this so many times. all I have to do is go like this, and it makes me laugh. Now I put whatever visual I want to collapse in front of me. I think about Armageddon, and it doesn't feel the same anymore. It doesn't feel the same. It feels like a joke because it is. It is. And that's a much healthier way to look at it. We don't need that fear anymore. It's not useful. It wasn't useful then. Then it just kept us in a state of control, afraid. Okay, so we can do that with Armageddon. That's a fear. What about being disfellowshipped? What about losing our family? What about losing our network, our international brotherhood? So it's helpful when you create these anchors, when you create these new resource states, if you use different spots. So maybe we don't want laughter for everything. Maybe we want a sense of community. Maybe we want a feeling of wholeness. Maybe we want to carry that with us into the future. Because here's something to remember. Our emotions are attached to words, but it's still just an emotion. And the emotion can be attached to anything at all. That's how this is working. That's why you can think of a song from your teenage years and it immediately makes you smile or immediately makes you giggle, or your favorite dessert reminds you of your granny or something like that. We create these associations to events, but it's not the event that causes the feeling. It's our interpretation. So, for example, you might love salmon, and the smell of salmon might remind you of a fishing trip, or, where you're grilling salmon or whatever. And it's great. And the next person smells it and they got food poisoning off of it. So their brain they smell it and it's vomitous. It makes them feel horrible. It's not the salmon. It's your interpretation. It's the emotional state that you attach to the word, the image, or the event. So Like I said, it's helpful when we're doing these resource states that we do each emotional state in a different spot. So maybe this might be your laughter. Maybe over here on this side might be your feeling of wholeness. Maybe it's your feeling of family. Maybe it's your feeling of connectedness. So we have lots of good resources that we can work with here. You know, ears are a good one. You can pinch anything that feels weird, anything that you would not normally feel. You know, I don't know, something, this might not be strong enough because you might touch your hands all the time, but something that you don't normally do, a point, a pressure point, anything that you do, and it, like I said, it takes probably about 3 or 4 times, and then the body will anchor that to that state. Another quick example, holding hands. What exactly does that mean? We interpret it to mean that somebody loves us or somebody cares about us. It's just touching hands, but it elicits that feeling. And that's what we're doing, is we're doing these feelings on purpose, because most of the time what happens is we've created these associations and we didn't do it on purpose. We did it accidentally. We did it in childhood. We did it because we got brainwashed. So those are random. And I like random. Random is fun, but not when it comes to my life, not when it comes to my brain, not when it comes to whether I'm going to be successful in my life or not. For those kind of things, I'm going to take control of that. And I am going to decide how I choose to feel in certain contexts. So let's take disfellowshipping. We've associated that with rejection, abandonment, loss, alone. Okay, those were the old feelings. You all probably are very well aware of how hurtful those feelings are. And remember, it's not the word, the people, or the event that causes the feeling, it's our attachment to it. So I want you to remember a time in the past, not the memory so much, how it felt. I want you to remember a family reunion, or I don't know, pioneer meeting, or some event where you felt a part of it. You felt like you belonged. You felt like this was your people. You belonged. You had a clan. You had a group. Remember that. Think about it. Remember how good it felt. I don't want you thinking about the pictures. I don't care about the pictures. Feel that feeling and grab your ear. Remember how good it felt to be connected. How beautiful that was. How whole you're part of the group. Okay, good. Shake it off, shake it off, shake it off. Now we're going to do it again. You are now training your brain to access emotional states at will. Your brain doesn't understand the difference between imaginary and real. All it knows is what you tell it to know. That's why memories are so powerful, because they've got these emotions attached to it. You know, where does the memory exist? I don't know, in space, in our brain. And where's the past? Where it's in your head. It's in your head. So when you remember things, you're accessing an emotional state, and you can do this on purpose. All right, so again, go back to that feeling of connectedness. You belong to your family, you belong to a group, and anchor that. Notice how good that feels. Notice where you feel it in your body. Everybody feels it a little bit different. Some people feel it in their chest. Some people it feels like flutters. Some people it feels solid. Some people it feels, our emotions are coded differently in every one of us. So notice how connected feels to you. Okay, good. You can do that a couple more times if you want, because now this ear is connected to that emotion of connectedness. You just did that sitting in your living room, your bedroom, wherever the heck you are right now. You just created that feeling all by yourself. Good. Because now you can do it at will. Now you can do it with whatever event that you want. So we were brainwashed into thinking that the world is evil. We could collapse that belief later, but typically the word worldly, disfellowshipped, creates an alone type of feeling, right? So before we go on to programming the feeling of connected into our new life, let's talk about this feeling for a second of disconnect, that we've lost family, etc. Worldly people lose family too. Worldly people have family issues too. And they still build a community. Jehovah's Witnesses were not the only one that felt that feeling. This is a human feeling. Everybody feels it. When you feel it, it's easier to create. So think about that for a second. If you feel alone, abandoned, rejected, neglected, all these horrible feelings, is that going to help you or hold you back when it comes to making friends and creating a new community? Nobody wants to be with the Eeyore. If you're in a group and you feel like nobody loves me, I'm abandoned, I'm rejected, and you're sitting in the back of the room, guess what? You're going to stay that way, because that's how you feel, and you're vibrating this energy of nobody loves me and I'm rejected and I don't have anything and I lost everything. I'm not talking about whether or not that's true, because yes, it happened. Yes. But it doesn't mean we have to have the emotional response. We're talking about recovery here. We're talking about healing. If you want to live there, okay. I wouldn't suggest it. It sucks. Why? Why keep those negative associations? They will, if anything, propel you to go back. God, please don't do that. Please do that. Please stick with me here. Please do this, please. Because those associations can make us go back to the old behaviors if we think that that's the only way we can feel that. And that's not true. That's not true. We were told that the world is a scary place and that we're not going to fit in. And well, you're not if you feel like that. So we're starting to cross-wire things here. Try something new. Try something different. Probably what you've been trying, maybe it's not working so well. If it's working a little bit, maybe this will help it even more. People are just people. That's it. They're just people. We get a new clan. I mean, we met new people all the time. We switched congregations. We went to a pioneer school. We moved. And International Brotherhood. We didn't know those people. We thought it. It was the thinking it that created the emotion, that created how we felt. So now we're going to do it again. Okay. So think about a place where you might be meeting new people. Think about work, after work events. Maybe you start volunteering to, I don't know, help some, whatever volunteer work you want to do. Okay. So access your feeling of connectedness. Access that feeling, and not the memory, the feeling. And visualize your new scenario. You feel like this in your group of new people. Somehow you see a twinkle in their eye and it feels connected. It feels comfortable. You start noticing that maybe you do fit in. Right? Because here's the truth. Here's the truth. We didn't fit in there either. I can't even tell you how many times I've heard people say, I was a black sheep. No, you weren't. You were in the wrong crowd. You were in the wrong crowd. You know, all of our friends abandoned us. No, they actually weren't friends. We cross-wired the feeling of friendship with fake people. That wasn't friendship. It was a brainwash. It was a cross-wiring of the brain. So now we're going to do it on purpose and create a new life. Okay, so we've got Armageddon. And that's just funny because that's laughable. That's not real. Nobody else is even thinking that, right? And now we have that feeling of connectedness. And you can have that feeling in any group of people that you want. And it actually makes it easier to create a group of friends and people. Okay, so I'm going to do a couple of videos probably on this exact same thing because this is a weird concept. So I'll probably go into a little bit more explanation in a future video. Sometimes it's helpful if we plant the seeds, the thoughts in the back of your mind kind of start stirring. Maybe this makes a little bit sense. Maybe this is, we're unwashing the brainwashing. Then we come back to it in a couple of weeks and we're like, okay, you know what? I remember this now. This did, okay, I got this. Let me try it again. Or watch the video a couple more times and send me a message if you have any questions. Send me a message if you have any complications. Tell me if it worked, okay? All right, sweethearts, I will talk to you soon in the next video. Bye.